are, game number 4, as you mentioned, on Daybreak. This is going to be the final map in the map pool before we reset and take it back to Ohana, should it be necessary in a game number 5. Quantic.NaNiwa starting in the top right as the red Protoss, and his opponent, DJREcco, the blue Zerg in the bottom left.
Oh man, you are funny. That is funny. 16-year-old DJREcco spinning those discs, ready to take the fight on Daybreak. And on Daybreak, let me just explain it for a second. A lot of people may be saying, well, why? You said that Zerg has been more favored on Daybreak recently over Protoss, but why? And the reason is because how do Protoss take this map? Do they try and go for a 2-base push, which a lot of Zerg players are well prepared for nowadays?
Right.
They scout at the right times, they scout in the right places, and they always have the right drone count and the units out in the correct places too. So if you can't pull off a 2-base push, that means you have to take a 3rd base. But on Daybreak, the distance from the main to the 3rd is massive. So drop play, mutiling play, anything along those lines can really rip apart a Sentry Immortal style of push.
Absolutely, and the 3rd base is fairly easy, and it's just simple for the Zerg to take. If he's up against a Forge expansion, which it looks like Nani is going to be doing some form of fast expansion here, it's a build any Zerg has probably played against hundreds of times before, and I'm sure JonnyREcco has seen NaNiwa's variants of it. So he's going to feel very comfortable going up to 3 base, amassing that mid-game army to break the 2 base all in, if necessary, and then taking it to Hive. We've seen he's very comfortable playing the mid-game to Hive transitions.
Yeah, he's very good at that, actually. I think that JonnyREcco is most... I don't know what... I'm trying to think that where NaNiwa could see a weakness in his play. Is it going to be in the early game? I don't think so. Is it in the mid-game? Not really, because he's actually really good at defending against these all-ins. He's got his Hive setup where he doesn't really lose the timings. And I think the only weakness set up for JonnyREcco is in a straight-up fight. So we're talking full Nexus across the map. Mothership coming into play, the Archon toilet and so on. I think that's the only really area that NaNiwa can take a game.
Yeah, we haven't seen a full-fledged Protoss defense against the Broodlords out of NaNiwa. We've seen him go for that timing to break it before Broodlords come out. We've never seen him set up, get enough Colossi, even go up to Void Rays, eventually Carriers with the Mothership, Archons, and fight it in the extreme late game. So I'd be interested to see how JonnyREcco does in that scenario. The other thing we've seen is that his multitasking does cause him to falter just a little bit, and I'm looking back to that game number 3, 4th hatchery going down, and staring very closely at that when I say that.
Yeah, so if I was NaNiwa and if I was the Quantic coach or anything along those lines, I would say just, don't do a timing this time. It hasn't worked. Right. Suck it up and just play the later stages. Of course, if you can survive the mid-game, if JonnyREcco decides to do aggression versus the very thin and spread out Protoss army.
Absolutely. And it looks like NaNiwa going for a very... this is probably the most standard of the games we've seen thus far. Forge expansion, very well-timed and well-placed cybernetic score. Zealot coming out to block that choke point. JonnyREcco responding by going for a very, very quick 3rd hatchery.
This is completely standard so far by JonnyREcco, and the next stage of the game is going to be DJREcco just scouting out the gases on the natural. That's why we actually have the Overlord in position there, because upon seeing the gases and the timings of when they go down, can actually start to build an image of what he cannot see. And if the gases are down early, he knows that there's no going to be gateways down, so he can guess that it's going to be some form of tech. If they are later on and more delayed, he knows that potential gateways have come down, which could lead to believe some form of +1 attack. But that Overlord, before it moved to the gases, did see nothing being researched from the Forge, so that has already been eliminated.
And look at this, a very quick robotics going down for NaNiwa, skipping that +1, and now using a Stalker to drive out that Overlord. Should be fine, but it's getting driven into the side of the map. Taking a look, 3rd base now up, a Queen already sitting happily by there. He's going to make one at his natural, and the creep spread has begun. JonnyREcco isn't going for this new kind of... I don't know if it's flavor of the months or the new solid Zerg play, but he does not get a lot of queens and doesn't focus on that huge creep spread we've seen out of Zergs these days.
Yeah, I mean, if you take his 3rd base, for example, there's no creep tumor there, which you would see, 9 times out of 10 of the rest of the Zergs. He does have 1 creep tumor on his natural, which should be looking to connect to his third base if he's feeling in a defensive stance, or start to push out if he's in a more happy position. One thing to note though, look at this. The gases have not been taken, which may lead to believe a false sense of security. A false sense of security, because he now knows that his opponent doesn't tech him. He's only going to have minerals and resources, so that's why his Spine Crawler is coming down. That's why the Roach Warren and Evolution Chamber started, and unit production at such a low drone count. He's only at 49 with units starting to come out because he knows NaNiwa is setting up to do some form of aggressive attack.
And NaNiwa has pushed out with his 3 Stalkers, trying to clear the Watchtowers. He's also tried to clear any Overlords along, just putting a little bit of harassment. And look at this Warp Prism coming out now. NaNiwa has followed it up with 3 more gateways in the main base. Overlord gonna fly into the main base. JonnyREcco has been spot on with these scouting timings with his Overlords all series long.
Indeed, he has, and because of that, he's able to set up a defense here, but he doesn't have Zergling speed. A lot of Zerg players do opt for layer now, and with the Stalker count out and the Warp Prism out, this can be a direct frontal attack, or it could very easily be Zealots on the ground, Stalkers in the Warp Prism, and that could do a lot of damage here. There is the Spine Crawler, and a second one coming down because he knows exactly what's going on. An Overlord in the main base of NaNiwa actually sees everything now, but is JonnyREcco going to have the defense able to defend against this?
Yeah, it looks like NaNiwa's just using that Warp Prism to warp in additional units, not doing anything sneaky with it. He's now put into phasing mode right under an Overlord, so JonnyREcco 100% aware of this. NaNiwa driving forward with a few Stalkers and Zealots, trying to take down that Spine Crawler. Smartly pulled and rerouted by JonnyREcco, trying to flood in with Roaches, get the Zerglings around the Stalkers, but actually a lot of damage being done here by NaNiwa as he's focusing down the Roaches and using the Zealots to soak up the Zerglings. Very, very nice battle micro by NaNiwa, getting maximum efficiency out of these units, but it's just not enough. JonnyREcco just had an inkling it was coming, and that's why he had enough of an army to defend against it.
Exactly. He was at a low drone count before he started these units. There are more Roaches around now, and this has been pushed back so easy. Nana has to pick up and get out. And another failed attempt of something in the early to mid stages of the Protoss versus Zerg matchup. And we said that it hasn't been working, that NaNiwa maybe shouldn't have attempted something like that. But
absolutely,
excuse me, he's done it again and it hasn't worked, and he needs to do more damage. This is a massive investment to what he could have done with the money if he hadn't have thrown it into this.
And Apollo, I know a thing or two about getting out, and it's never fun. We see the Warp Prism driven out of the main base yet again by the Queen. The army already there. JonnyREcco on, spot on with his army movements. He's got it split up between his third and his main. He's got Overlords watching the Warp Prism's movement, and NaNiwa has just resigned himself to taking a third base. That's all he can do.
And just to, kind of clarify a little bit, it's not like NaNiwa lost too much without dealing damage out. It's that he could have done so much more with the money.
Right.
I think that's a pretty big deal here. But right now, NaNiwa is with the third Nexus up, and of course can easily crawl back into this game. He has a lot of Immortals out if his defense is pretty good. Right now, we see no fourth base. We don't see additional gases, and it's very simply a Roachling army. And the bigger that army gets, the harder it becomes for NaNiwa to defend, naturally. And that's what we're going into right now. We're going to see a launched attack across the map, maybe in 2 different locations. The one thing to note, though, that is late in this game is the macro hatch. Only just now finishing up. So the supply count for JonnyREcco is actually smaller than it should be.
Absolutely. NaNiwa has snuck a Warp Prism into the natural. Queen there trying to take it down. So what he's trying to do here is do a little backdoor action, sneak him some Zealots when JonnyREcco is distracted, and just deal some damage on the economy. JonnyREcco trying to move up into the choke point between the third and second base. There's a lot of sentries out with a lot of energy. Looks like he's going to clear out those rocks to set up for a future attack, but he doesn't want to get involved in there with the amount of sentries, even though this is a nice attack timing.
Army supply is
100
to 60. The forces have to be spectacular here.
Looks like, oh, look at this flank attack, trying to drive the army back into the natural so that he can flank down into the third, but a good response by NaNiwa. He's got his army split up into the choke point. Oh my god, Cybernetics Core goes down. That is huge, and looks like JonnyREcco is satisfied with his damage. Just gonna pull out and continue harassing the natural.
This really sucks for NaNiwa. I mean, that's all I can really think about saying. He split his army up perfectly. But the problem is that the Cybernetics Core and Forge have been picked off, even though he was defending his economy, which is what he was aiming to do. And with those going down, he can't build Stalkers, he can't build Sentries. His money's going to go high now unless he just builds Zealots and Immortals. So right now, NaNiwa in a really difficult position. His Forge got picked off, which means once again his upgrades are going to be a little bit lackluster to where they would have been. JonnyREcco setting up a 4th and 5th base in the meanwhile.
Yeah, he knows that NaNiwa can't attack. NaNiwa can just defend and tech up, basically. So that gives him timing to expand a little more aggressively than he maybe would have otherwise. Without that cybernetic score, NaNiwa is just forced to sit in his base and wait for it to finish yet again.
So right now, the game is stabilized a little bit here in terms of no aggression coming out for JonnyREcco, but he does have double evolution chamber. He's researched his melee upgrades once again, and we'll be just looking forward to going over to the Hive momentarily here. And I'm trying to think what NaNiwa is aiming to do here. He has Blink on the way. He has not started his +2 yet, but he does have another Immortal coming in additional gateways. The Warp Prism, though, in the main base, shut down, and I guess JonnyREcco says he doesn't like to be backdoored here, chill.
Yeah, I mean, NaNiwa could have probably done a little better there had he pushed out with his army and then done it as kind of a distraction attack. But if you do it in vision of your opponent, I mean, it's unlikely that he's not going to be able to see it. I think the Hive is just a little bit late here for JonnyREcco. He's maxed out at 190 supply. He's building up that surplus of minerals, but his Hive at only 50%, he probably could have done well to start that a little earlier.
And it looks like we are going to have another hit timing here by NaNiwa, who's setting up to go. The Warp Prism is on its way as well. Pylon is down, so NaNiwa this time has a Warp Prism and a Probe Pylon out. So he has the reinforcements available. And there's not that many infests. Oh, actually, no, never mind. There are 5 there at the back in the top left. So NaNiwa has to be very careful not to get clumped up here. As once again, we saw in map number 1 how dangerous that can be.
Oh, and JonnyREcco moving forward and taking out the Pylon. So beautiful play there. No forward warp-ins for NaNiwa available. He's repositioning his Spine Crawlers now to set up a defense. And NaNiwa doesn't have any hard-hitting splash damage units here. It's just Stalker, Sentry, Zealot, Immortal.
Indeed, so these force fields again have to be great. Nice blink up actually to the right-hand side. Gives him a great arc of fire. Great force fields as well, keeping the the infestors away. An aggressive blink as well, and NaNiwa may have cracked his opponent.
Yeah, he's trying to blink forward and snipe those infestors, but now with the force fields going down, JonnyREcco able to come in with the second half of his army, which NaNiwa may have not expected, as he believed he was fighting the entire army. Now falling back, trying to force field desperately, but not the best force fields. There we go, completing the wall, save a small spot on the western edge, and the army more or less resets. JonnyREcco with 46 Zerglings in production, a couple more infestors, a couple more roaches. That Greater Spire about to finish, but he hasn't found the breathing room to push out the Corruptors and actually start preparing for Broodlord tech.
Absolutely. So, even though the Greater Spire is done, it doesn't really matter for NaNiwa, but he doesn't know about that, remember. So, NaNiwa now moving his way across, looking for a different angle. That fight was taken with just +1. Now we have +2 completed for NaNiwa, working on +3. The Templar Archives is down, so it doesn't look like he's going to continue to push through, otherwise there'd be no reason to spend that money there. And he is looking to play this game a little bit longer than it currently is. I'm thinking what he can do. He's got another Warp Prism coming. Maybe he can try and pick off the expansions with that Warp Prism. But look at the base in the middle and the base in the top left. JonnyREcco actually hasn't been mining from them efficiently yet. So he doesn't even have the right money to where he ideally would like to be.
Right. NaNiwa pushing in yet again. I'm surprised he's not waiting for Templar or Archons here. Just pushing forward. Wants to stay aggressive. A few infestors moving forward. Fungling the majority of the forward army. Chain fungling again, but the blink forward. Able to snipe those off. And we've got the dance back and forth. Who's going to blink first?
And this is a painful death. This is a very slow, painful death here for those Stalkers. Wow. One more fungal could have killed them all. And NaNiwa was just sitting there watching them be fungled. Once again, another Overseer inside the main base has didn't pick up the Templar Archives actually. Sees, of course, the Forge being kind of boosted out. But we do see that there's an Overlord in the bottom right as well, so he knows there's no new base yet. Again, JonnyREcco spread out nicely. NaNiwa has a good amount of units. Archon's in the mix as well now, and he's going to try and break his opponent again.
But the Broodlords are up for JonnyREcco. NaNiwa pressing forward. He might have bitten off more than he can chew here as the The Broodlords in the back able to rain down with the Infestors chain fungling on the majority of those units. Spinecrawler's able to support as well. The force fields are good, but I don't know if NaNiwa has the firepower behind this to actually push forward. Blinking through, trying to go around and focus down those Broodlords, able to get one of them, but the other two are sitting on top of the Spinecrawlers. I don't know if NaNiwa actually wants to drive forward, and now he's kind of in a weird spot, trying to blink forward and isolate the roaches so that he's able to get some clear path into JonnyREcco's main base. Coming in and warping in yet again underneath the Warp Prism. Infested Terrans forced to come out. NaNiwa is being so aggressive. Will he have enough to finish it? Looks like he's got a turntail and get out of there. And Apollo, look at the supplies.
Yeah, the supplies tell a big story here, and it's a true story as well. NaNiwa is on the back foot, and the macro, the lava injects, the production is insane right now for JonnyREcco. Just consistently warping or moving units across, and now NaNiwa is about to get surrounded here, and he's taking the fight again. JonnyREcco is trying to kill NaNiwa. NaNiwa at +3 attack. But there's so many units. Great micro here from NaNiwa. And if he continues to warp units, he may be able to push this Roach army back. But there's more and more Corruptors and Broodlords on the way.
Yeah, NaNiwa doing the feudal immortal dance there. And he actually does clean that up incredibly well. So showing some nice battle micro there. But I'm not sure if it matters. JonnyREcco has dropped down in supply quite a bit, but able to keep his high-tech units going on. Does NaNiwa even have Storm? No, unfortunately he doesn't. He's trying to secure this third base, but look at his piddly army, his sad army sitting in the middle of the map.
It is a very sad army because he doesn't have the money, because it's 22 minutes and that fourth base is only just now finished up. There's a lot of Broodlords being morphed now, and the sad thing as well is that NaNiwa sees everything. He sees exactly what's coming in. He's trying to get Colossus out to deal with the Roachlings and the Broodlings as they come out here, but the problem is that he just doesn't have the money. He doesn't have that high of a gateway count either, and in a few moments time what we're going to see is JonnyREcco get comfortable. He's going to start smiling when the new Corruptors come out, and then he's going to make his way across the map, and when the fourth bases are set up in the middle, it's not a far walk, and he will get there and be ready to kill NaNiwa here.
And the other sad thing that there's really no answer to for NaNiwa is that he's churning out as many units as possible so that he doesn't die now. But the problem in doing that, he's not progressing forward. He's not getting Psystorm, he's not getting Templar, he's not getting a Mothership. And that means, you know, if he makes enough units so that he lives now, it means in 5 minutes he's not going to be able to live.
Alright, well, NaNiwa looking for options, is potentially looking at a fifth base down in the bottom right here, as the Probe and Pile are in position, but an Overlord is denying that. A Changeling again in the center of the map, in the mineral line, checking out the army value and the army depth here. Sees that it's a pretty decent army to take a fight into, and with the last few remaining Broodlords being morphed, that is going to be a sign to move out. Remember, NaNiwa will have the defender's advantage, but he doesn't have a Mothership. He doesn't have that many Archons. He doesn't have Storm, as you pointed out, either. And he's just going to have to micro his heart out if he wants to fight against these Broodlords, because look how much support is underneath. 6 Infestors and 67 Lings with a handful of Roaches here and there.
And 1/1 upgrades on the Lings, but take a look at the Broodlords, +2 flyer carapace on them. So when NaNiwa blinks forward and tries to focus them down, it's going to take him that much longer to focus them down as he gets chain fungled again and again and again. And look at this amount of Broodlords flying towards the center of the map.
And he's not even going to wait for his 2-2 to finish up. He's just going to take the fight. He knows that NaNiwa doesn't really have the weapons to deal with this army. And JonnyREcco waiting. He's waiting for that blink to come under the Broodlords. And he is idly showing those Lings, those Infestors. NaNiwa is in a rough place.
NaNiwa is playing it well. He's trying to hope that JonnyREcco comes out into the middle, gets a little too ambitious, and he can catch those Infestors with a Colossus swipe, blink forward, and end this. That's really the only thing he can hope to do. He blinks forward, maybe a little prematurely. The Broodlords with the fungal able to focus down all those Stalkers. Look how quick those Stalkers are going down, and the Broodlords are just floating around happily, laughing as the Broodlings go forward. And NaNiwa saying congrats to his opponent, JonnyREcco. And this is a huge deal.